Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're a returning friend, if you're new here, then there are over 400 videos available for you to go and have a look at, and they're to do with doodle drawing and journal making and card making, anything paper based really. So if you're just discovering the channel for the first time, please subscribe and then go and check out those playlists. But today's video is a doodle draw video. This is a simple draw along with me video, and I will take you from start to finish all the way through learning how to draw these rather pretty apple blossoms. My theory about drawing is very simple. Lots of people say, oh, I can't draw, but maybe they've never been taught. Can you remember when you were learning to write for the first time with a pencil or a crayon, and how difficult it was to master the muscles of your fingers to grip the crayon or the pencil and to make meaningful marks on a page? It was hard work, but you didn't give up, you persevered, you were encouraged, and eventually you learned how to write. And it's exactly the same with drawing. There's no reason you should expect yourself to be able to draw if nobody has shown you. And I'm going to show you very simple, very basic drawing techniques that work for me, that I use in my journals and my greetings cards. If you'd like to check out my earlier doodle drawing videos, then please do so. This is little buildings, and this is based on the sorts of buildings that I see in the landscape around me here in the south of France, and I'll provide a link to that video up in the corner there. And also we have a video all about drawing plants in pots, and there are loads of different variations of plants in pots, and I'll provide a link to that video in the corner up there. But today it's all about the apple blossom that I have been watching and photographing in my garden. And if you hear a few bangs and crashes and things like that, it's because the house is being rewired at the moment, so I'm trying to sneak in this video between noises. So how do we start to get to this? We start here. Now I'm working on a very thin piece of paper that allows me to see what's below and then draw it out for you, because I've discovered that I can't draw and think and talk at the same time. Let's start with a really simple set of 5 petals. Now we're going to do 5 lines like this, just to give us the foundation of the shape that we need to do. And if you want to think of it in terms of a clock, then we're going to draw lines at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, around about 5 o'clock, 7ish, and 10. And so if you don't find it easy to go ahead straight in and do that, think in terms of a clock face. Now that we have our 5 lines, and they don't have to be exact, it's just to give you a foundation to draw around, we're going to add some petals. We're going to add 5 petals altogether, and we start in between each of these 2 lines. So we start here and we draw what could be an oval, except it goes a little bit square across the top, and it comes down and it finishes in between the next 2 lines that we've drawn. Really what I want you to think of in terms of, it's like joining dots. You set out your foundation and then you just add to it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep adding to it. Notice that I'm not joining the petals right at the top, I'm leaving a little gap between my petals, because that gives them a better segmentation. Although we're not aiming for absolute reality in these drawings because they are doodles, we do want to get some sense of the plant. And across, slightly square on the top, and join it back in like that. So that's our beginning. So that we don't begin to crowd the centre later on when we start adding elements, I'm going to add in these 5 little ovals, because that tells me where the centre of the flower is without making it very, very muddly and confused. The next stage is to add in the stamens. I'm going to quickly draw in these little petals. I can do this quickly because in effect I'm tracing over the top of a drawing I've already done. And then I'll show you that I can add these lovely, I think they're called stamens, I think they hold pollen, but whatever they do, they look like this. So you've got some lines that curve slightly towards the edges of the petals, and it can be an even number or an uneven number. Make sure that these are of varying lengths. You don't want it to look too uniform, and that's how you achieve something that looks a little bit more natural. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly fill in my petals. You can see how quickly these come together, and that's the great thing about a doodle, is it happens really quickly. So now I'll just add those little heads on the top of them. And these are they're like sort of ovals, but not quite. They're not regular circles, I think is the important thing. They're not regular dots. So now that we have that, I'm going to show you how to add a curl on the petal. And all you do is add an extra little line here around the tip of the petal. And that is going to look like the petal is, instead of lying flat, the petal is curving in on itself a little bit. I'll do the same on this one here. Just draw a line around the top, and you can make it a slightly wobbly line as well, and it looks like a curl on the petal. So that's a simple blossom facing you. Now let's do some petals that look at you sideways. Starting with a simple shape again. A line and a line here to create a little triangle on the end of your line. And the reason for doing that is to remind yourself of what you're drawing. I find it easier just to add this little bit of stem to tell me. Now we're going to do a shape. This is actually a petal, and it's a sort of a very rough, very vague oval shape. And from there, we're doing 4 lines, not 5 here, because this central petal is basically, it's already got its line sort of on the inside, and because we've already drawn that petal, we don't need a line to tell us. So these 4 lines here are simply guides to say let's pop in a petal here, and you don't want to make them too long, and you want to make them nice and irregular, and they can be any shape. This is what's so great about drawing the blossom, is there's no wrong shape. And now we're going to refine it a little, so I'll draw it again. I've got my little line and a triangle on the top representing where my petal sort of joins onto the stem, and then I've got my very rough, very vague oval shape. And then, because I've drawn these a few times, because I know my foundation well, I can just add the petals in without the need for those 4 lines, and you'll get to that point too. It's just practice and confidence as well. And then I can add my little stems here, my little stamens. I can add those little blobs on the top. And then to make this look more petally, all I do is draw some slightly curved lines like this. And that makes it look a little bit more like a petal. And you can see you've got the inside poking out. And then to make these look a bit more petally, I can add a couple of little lines like this. It makes it look as if the petal has a slight fold to it, a little bit more movement to it. To make a petal face the other way, we do exactly the same, but this time I'm going to sort of add the next sort of level of realism. So I'm adding in a thicker stem, so I now have got 2 lines for the stem, and they're very wobbly lines. It's not a smooth wood, it fluctuates. Now I'm going to do my funny little oval petal like this. I'm going to add in the curves, and these other 4 are just poking out from the side of it. And on these 4 this time, I'm going to add a couple of curves. So that was just a line. That's all it is. It's just a line that goes around the top of the petal like that. So that those 2 look as if they are curved under. And then I'm going to add my stamens. But I'm going to not have them poking out quite as much as on the other petal, because each time I do this I'm going to sort of refine it a little bit. But by working with that foundation that we did back here, those 3 will give you the confidence to then go and play around a little bit more. And each time you do this, it'll get easier, and I think you'll get better at it, because it's a bit like when you learn to write. You didn't learn to write perfectly the first time you picked up a pencil. It took time and practice, and it's exactly the same with doing little doodle drawings like this. The other thing that we can do is we can make our flowers face us but look as if they're facing in different directions. So this one is facing straight at us. Let's do one that doesn't face straight at us. So now I've got a circle here and I can say my centre will be slightly off centre, it's slightly lower down in the flower like this. And by doing this, I'm moving the centre of my blossom. Let's draw it out properly using the techniques that we learned to draw this one. So this is my centre of my flower, and my petals are going to stretch all the way up to the edge of my imagined circle. I drew a circle here, and here I can imagine my circle in place. I'm doing a couple of petals that are slightly shorter. So where it's closer to me, it's lower down. I'm doing them a little bit shorter because that then allows me space to add curves and curls on the petals. And that gives the illusion that these petals, although they're shorter than these, are the same length, it's just that they have a curl on them. Now I can add in my stamens. Curve to the sides, curve like that, following the line of the petal like that, and then add the little heads. And from here you can add in all the extra details such as the hint of a fold in your petals. Let's draw another one where the centre is higher up and see how we deal with that. So that's going to be the centre of my flower. I am imagining my circle. You can draw this in pencil if you want. If you want to draw a circle in pencil and then put a little dot where you want the centre to be, you go ahead following this sort of style here. And I'm going to do shorter petals at the top of the flower and slightly longer petals as the flower comes towards me. I'm also going to add the curl onto these top ones because these are the short petals, so this looks like it's curling in from the top of the blossom. And then you go in and add your stamens. On the longer petals, you make the stamens longer, and on the shorter petals, you make them a little bit shorter. Can you see how quickly these drawings, these little doodles, come together? And once you've got the foundation that we're doing now, you'll be able to doodle these on all sorts of things. But we need leaves. Leaves are so simple. A leaf is an upside down tear shape. That's it. That's a basic leaf. And we can vary that in many, many ways. The way we're going to do it for our apple blossom is our teardrop shape, a line down the middle, and then V shapes. And these are the veins of the leaf. And these help to distinguish the leaf from the blossom itself. When you're actually putting together a little composition of these, such as I showed you at the beginning of the video, this will help show what is leaf and what is blossom. We can add a bit more variation on this as well. So there's our basic teardrop shape. But this time I'm going to take a little notch out. So I'm going to notch back into the leaf. So it comes out, I notch back into the leaf, I bring my line forward, notch back into the leaf and bring it forward. Notch back, bring the line forward, notch back, and these are tiny little notches, notch back, complete the leaf. And then, again, I can do my simple V-shaped veins. So let me draw that leaf without doing the little shape to begin with, and I can do that because I've practiced. So I'm actually going to draw two leaves. So I know the shape, I notch back, notch back, notch back, and there's the tip. And then I come around this side, notch back, notch back, notch back, and complete the leaf. Then this one pokes out just at the back, notch, notch, and there to the end. And the same, notch back into the leaf and then bring it up to the front. And then complete them with their veins. Something like that. And then you've got two together. Now, of course, I'm doing this in pen so I can show you, but you could draw these in pencil to begin with, go over them in pen and then erase your pencil marks. And the pen that I'm using is a Pigma Micron 02. That's the size of the nib that I'm using. It's a 02 nib. The great thing about these is that they dry very, very quickly. So if you've done this in pencil, gone over it in pen, You only need to give it a moment before you erase it because they really, they don't smudge easily. And if you were working on a thicker paper and you wanted to watercolour these or paint them in using a water-based paint, the ink wouldn't spread, it would stay static. So these are waterproof and bleed-proof pens. I'm going to do another couple of leaves. Again, I've got an easy job because I just have to trace over the top of them to show you using my pen. But if you were doing it, you would do it in pencil first to give yourself confidence, and then you just ink them in. And I'm doing this to show you the different ways that the leaves can work. They can stick out at any angle that you like for your project, and as long as you remember to notch back into the leaf, backwards into the leaf. The number of times I've done that the wrong way around, so that's why I say to myself now when I'm drawing them, backwards into the leaf, and it's a good little mantra. But this way it shows you that you can make the leaves go in any direction that you want, that suits your project, and you're not limited then to having all your leaves static and going in the same direction, because you've got the confidence and the skills and you're developing the muscle memory so you can make your leaves do anything that you want them to do. Let's pull all of that together with a little blossom cluster. So that's going to be a blossom and 2 little leaves. Again, I'm tracing this. You go ahead and do it in pencil. I've got my basic little leaf shape here. I've got my 5 petals. I'm more confident doing my petals now, so I know to give them a slight wobble on the edge, and I can make them really go any shape that I want them to be. So there's my blossom, there's my centre, there's my little 5 ovals that tell me where my centre is, and I can add in curls on the petals if I want. I can really go to town on these now because I've got the skills to do that. I add in my little stamens like this. I'm going to add the leaves as well. Put the little heads on. And then my leaves, I'm going to have them just popping out the side. So I notch back into the leaf, bring it to a point, notch back into the leaf and bring it to a point. And then the same on this side, notch back into the leaf and bring it to a point. And then I can add the veins. Simple veining, just a V shape. Where possible, I try and relate drawing back to letters that we learned, because if you understand the shape, and a shape you're familiar with, such as a V shape, it kind of gets in your head a bit easier, I think, and it makes it much easier to remember. I'm going to add another couple of lines there as if there's a V that goes behind that little blossom. And there is a really pretty cluster. And you could add that cluster to a journal or an envelope. If you're addressing an envelope and sending something through the mail to somebody, you could add that as a little doodle. It is only a doodle, don't be scared of it. It is simply a doodle. Now we're going to move on and make a little composition using multiple blossoms and multiple leaves, and we're also going to add in some little extra details in the form of buds and a branch. So I've done a little mock-up here. So using your pencil, just add a branch, and then you're not going to draw in any detail. You're going to draw in the shapes of where you want things to be on your branch full of blossom. Now I'm going to start with a circle here. And that circle represents a blossom. And then I think what I'm going to do is have a cluster of them. So I'm going to have another blossom here, just slightly behind my first one. And over here, another one that just comes straight off the branch like that. So what about some leaves? I'm going to have a little leaf that pops out here, and maybe a leaf that pops out here. Like I said, these can go in any direction. I know I want to have a leaf here and one poking out that way, so I get lots of different movement. If all your leaves went the same way, it would look very, very uniform. I'm going to have another little leaf down here, and then to add variety, I'm going to have a blossom going on one side, so facing away, and this time I'm going to have it facing in this direction. So I'm going to do just a little triangle. That's just enough for me to know that that's how I want my my blossom to face in that direction. And then I've got the end of the branch. The branch comes all the way through here, and now it's going to come to this end, and I'm going to make this a little bud. So again, this is just representing where you think you want things to go. It means that if you're not happy with something, or if you think you need to add some more blossom or another leaf, do it on your composition and make sure that you're happy with this before you go ahead and add any detail. Before we move on and fill this in, I show you what this looks like when it's actually completed as a drawing, I want to show you the little buds. So the buds are so simple. All you need is a stem, and then you need a little oval shape on the top that's a little bit pinched at the top and the bottom. And then, because this is a bud, it's popped out of its little leafy coat that buds pop out of, and so we represent that just with a couple of little shapes like that. Let's do another one. We do a stem up, we do a bud like this, but this bud is a little bit more advanced, it's a little bit more open, so we add just a tiny little curved line on the side and join it at the top. Add in another imagined piece of greenery where the bud has popped out of its little coat, and there you've got another bud. Now let's do one that's a bit further down the line. There's the stem, here's the bud, opened out a little bit more, there's more of it, so it's beginning to look more like proper blossom, and there's our very, very rough shape of its little coat that it's popped out of. And by the time, if you decide that you want to colour these, all you have to do is remember that you're colouring green on those little bits there. And let's say that this one is it's a pinky blossom. So this is very, very rough colouring, because all I want you to do is get a sense of where, how the bud would look. So let's have a look at this composition when it's actually completed and turned into a little blossom doodle. So here they are side by side. This was the composition and this is the finished result. So I have my 3 blossoms completed there as per my 3 circles. I've got my 2 leaves underneath going in slightly different directions. In the end I missed out this leaf and I just went with 1 leaf because it was making it look a little bit too symmetrical and too structured, and I thought this made it look just a little bit more random. I've got my blossom on its side facing to the right as per my little doodle triangle, and I've got a leaf here, and then I've got 3 or 4 of the little buds poking out at the end of the branch as represented here. And that's how you do your compositions. So you don't draw it in detail like this first, you start here, and this is what I think is a really clever bit about drawing. I think the doodles are really nice and simple and easy, but then it's how you pull it together. And I think that on a greetings card, for example, would be a really lovely thing to send to a friend. Let's do another composition. In this composition, I've gone with 2 circles for blossom, a sideways blossom where I've actually split the petal in the middle, so it's facing off to the right, and we're going to see 2 petals rather than just 1 petal. I've got another double petal sideways facing to the left, a leaf above it, 2 leaves below, 1 leaf behind this double petal here, and some buds again. And this is how it looks when it's turned into an actual picture. So my 2 blossoms, the 2 blossoms on the side facing to the right and to the left, where you can see 2 petals rather than 1 simple petal, and then the leaves and the buds. And of course, once you've mastered that, you can go on and draw them onto little bits of paper and use them as bookmarks, or you can glue that to a card and send it to somebody, or you can store it in your journal, or where nearly all of my doodle drawing comes from, I use it in my journaling. So this is a huge branch of blossom. This is based on a photograph that I took in my garden. And then this is how I've used it slightly differently. A little cluster here in the top of my journal, a little branch here, just sweeping away to the left-hand side of the page, and then here, a little border, just using different blossoms. And that's how I like to use my doodles. I like to use it to illustrate my own journals. I hope that's given you lots and lots of inspiration. I hope you will give doodle drawing a go, And I have got some ideas from you. Thank you very much for more doodle drawing that you'd like to see, and they'll be coming up in the future. Just check me out every Friday evening, which is when I tend to post my videos. Hit the notification bell if you're already subscribed, and then you'll get notification every time there's a new video uploaded. So in the meantime, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time, as always, and until we meet again, stay safe and take care.